How's it going, everybody? So in today's video, I'm going to be showing you guys how to make your character hide and crawl underneath a table. This will work good for any kind of stealth or horror games where your character has to try and hide from the enemy. And so how it basically works is whenever you approach a obstacle that you can crawl underneath of, we have a widget pop up letting you know that you can hide, and then if you hit the interaction button, we got our character crouching down and then crawling underneath the table, and then whenever you exit it will reset. And as you notice, we also have the camera kind of transition whenever that happens, so it's a little lower angle. So yeah, without further ado, let's hop into it and get started. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create the table that we want our character to hide underneath. So go ahead and find a place inside of your folders that you want to store the asset at. I'm just going to choose here in the blueprints. So I'm going to right click, I'm going to do a new blueprint class, and then we're going to choose actor. And I'm just going to call this table hide. There we go. I'm going to open that up. And then I have a table asset that I have in a pack. So I'm just going to go and get that real quick. Okay, so go ahead and grab your tables mesh, and then we're going to go to add inside of this blueprint. We're going to add a new static mesh, and it will bring it in just like that. And then I'm going to also add the tablecloth for mine, so we'll do static mesh. We'll do SM cloth. And then I need to swap that out real quick. So if you click this plus or this arrow button right here, it will pop it in just like that. Okay, so there's one last thing we need to do for the table. Well, I guess there's a couple things maybe. So what we need to do is select the mesh, and then we're going to go to collision. So type in collision. And then right here where it says block all dynamic, we're going to click on that, and then we're going to make it custom. So I'm going to leave mine at world dynamic and then set to block all. And I'm going to do the exact same thing for the cloth. So custom, world dynamic, block everything. And then the last thing we're going to do is we're going to give this table a tag. That way, whenever our character overlaps with the table later on, it can detect that this table has a tag, and then we can allow it to do some logic. So let's click on this top one, and then we're going to type in tag, hit the plus icon, and then name this whatever you'd like. I'm just going to put table for mine. And then that's it for the table. Let's compile it and save it. And then I'm going to go ahead and drag that into our level. That way we can do some testing on it. Okay, so next thing we're going to do, let's hop into our player characters blueprint. And I have mine up right here. And so we want to start with the event begin play, and we also want the interaction input right there. We're not going to do that quite yet, but just make sure you have those ready and good to go. What we want to do, let's go to our viewport here. We want to add in a sphere collision for our character. So that way, whenever it overlaps an obstacle like the table, we can tell it to hide underneath. So to do that, let's click our capsule component right here, and we're going to click add. And then we're going to search for sphere collision. And then I'm going to go ahead and slice this up a little bit. I think that should do good right there. And so there's a couple things that we want to do so we can make sure that our collision works properly. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to highlight that sphere collision, and then we're going to type in collision. And then in here we don't want overlap all dynamic. What we want to do is create custom. And since I set the table to be world dynamic, what I want to do is set it to ignore everything except for world dynamic down here. We're going to do overlap right there. And then one thing you also want to do is go back to your level, and whatever the floor is set to, let's go ahead and click on the floor. I'm going to type in collision right here in the details panel. And we just want to make sure that it's set to anything except for world dynamic. Because if it's set to world dynamic, the sphere collision is going to also detect it and it can throw off our logic. So let's go ahead and I'm just going to set that to world static with block everything enabled. Okay, so let's head back into our blueprint right here. And then now what we want to do is create a couple of custom events for our sphere collision. So let's go ahead and right click on it. I'm going to do add events, and then on begin overlap, we're going to click on it again, add events, and then on end overlap, just like that. So I'm going to go ahead and select those and drag those up here so they're close to our other inputs. And so now what we want to do is do a filter for that tag that we created for the table. So whenever the sphere overlaps the table, we want to pull out of this other actor here. We're going to do actor has tag. And then in here, we just want to put in that same tag that we put in on our table, which is table. So let's pop that in there. And then we also want to create a branch, so we can put that into it. Go ahead and hook that up as well. And then let's just copy this and paste it beneath. Oh, wrong one. Okay, so now that we have this set up, what we need to do is create a variable. So down here in the variables tab, let's go ahead and click on the plus icon, and then we're going to call this one can interact. So whenever the sphere collision overlaps with an actor and it has the tag table, we are letting the player know that they can interact with that obstacle. So we're going to set that there. We're also going to copy this, and then on the end overlap, we want to set that to false right there. Okay, cool. So that should take care of that. Let's see what happens next. After that has happened, we want to create a branch down here. This is our interaction icon, so let's go ahead and create a new branch. And then we're going to pop in that can interact variable. That way, you can only interact with that obstacle once it's being overlapped with, and then once you hit the button, then it'll go through this true right there. Okay, so once that has happened, what we want to do is basically we want our character to be able to phase through the table, right? Or be able to move through it to basically hide our character. And to do that, what we need to do is grab a couple of the meshes in here, and we want to disable collision channels for a specific one. So I'm going to select our characters mesh first, and I'm going to drag that into our blueprints. And then I'm also going to select this capsule component. So let's also drag that in. And then out of one of these, let's drag out and do set collision response to channel. There we go. Okay, so we set our table to be world dynamic, so we're going to set this channel here to be world dynamic. And then the new response we're just going to leave to ignore, so that way the character can move freely throughout the table. And then, yeah, we'll do that. So real quickly, let's just test this out. Actually, before I do that, I want to do one more thing here. Let's go ahead and grab this and copy it and paste it right above here. And then for this one, I'm going to set to block. There we go. So we'll go here. And let's test this out. So now I'm hitting the table. Once I hit the E button to interact, I can phase through it. And then once I get to the other side, it should be blocking me again. Yeah, we're good. Okay. So now let's test out again and let's see if that fixed it. Boom, there we go. So now our character is moving through the table perfectly. Okay, so now what I want to do, I want to create a widget so that whenever I overlap with the table, it's letting me know that I can interact with it. So let's find an empty space inside of our folders we want this to be in, and we're going to right click, blueprint class, and then in the search bar here we're going to type user widget. So there we go, we'll select that. And then this one, I'm just gonna type in, hide, just for, keep it simple. So open that up, and the first thing we want to do is drag in a canvas panel. So canvas panel is underneath the panel tab, and we'll just drop that in right there. Next, let's get a text, which is underneath the common, and we'll also drag that into the canvas panel. Let's go ahead and select our text, and the first thing we want to do is set the anchor point to be in the center of the screen, and then we're just going to go ahead and zero out these variables for the X and Y position. That way the text is in the center of the screen. And then I kind of want my text to be a little to the right of the character, so I'm just going to increase this value on the X a little bit. So there's about good. And then for the text itself, I'm just going to call that hide ? And then that should be everything we need for this widget. So let's go ahead and compile and save it. And then let's go back to our character blueprint. Is that the right one? Yeah, this is it. Okay, so now what we want to do is create the widget right when the game starts. So out of event begin play, we're going to drag out, and then we're going to search for create widget. And then the class is the one that we just created, which should be hide. Okay, so now what we want to do is create a reference to this widget so we can manipulate it later on. So out of this output node, we're going to right click, promote to variable, and then we're going to name that one hide ? Well, actually, let's call that hide WB for widget blueprint. There we go. Okay, next, after we've created the widget, what we want to do is put it up on our screen. So we're going to drag out of here. We're going to do add to viewport. That way it gets added to the screen, and then immediately after we want to hide it. So out of this, we're going to drag out again. Actually, instead of doing that, let's drag out our new reference here. And then we're going to set the visibility to hidden, just like that. Go ahead and plug that in. Okay, cool. So now that we have that taken care of, what we want to do is we're going to copy this right here. And we're going to paste it down here. And so every time it overlaps the table, we want to show that blueprint. So I switched it from hidden to visible right here. We're going to end up changing this later. I'm going to do a quick fix so that whenever you've hit the interaction button, it will hide the visibility of the widget again. But for right now, this is fine. And then let's see, on end overlap, we also want to copy this again. And then plug that in. And then for whenever it exits the table, we also want to hide it again, just like that. Okay, cool. So we can test this out real quick. Go back here. We go up to it, it says hide. Whenever we walk away, it disappears. And of course, after I've hit the interaction button, it is still there, and we will fix that later on. Okay, so let's hop back into our character blueprint. So now what I want to do, now what I want to do is create a couple more variables. Let's create a variable for interacted. So that is a Boolean. So we want to know whenever we want to know whenever the table gets interacted with. So after you've hit the interaction button, let's drag out that interacted variable, and we're going to set that to true. Just like that. Let's go ahead and copy that. And we're going to paste it above right here. Let me scooch this over a bit. So whenever you've exited the table, it's going to reset that back, so you can't interact with it anymore. And then, let's see here. Actually, we can fix this right now. Let's go ahead and disconnect that. And then let's create a new branch. And this is at the on begin overlap. So we'll plug that in there, and then we're going to get that interacted variable, plug it into the condition. So whenever you overlap it, if it has been interacted with, we want to hide that widget. So we're going to take this, and then out of the true, we're going to set it to hidden, and then I'm going to copy this, paste it underneath. And then if it hasn't been interacted with, then we want to set it to visible. So let's give that a quick test real quick again, just to make sure it's working. So I go here, I hit interact. Oh, it's not hiding. Why isn't it hiding? One second here. Okay, so I figured out the issue. And basically, we want to take this can interact, and we want to put it out of the false right here. Let's go ahead and disconnect that. And then as well, we also want to copy this. And then once you've interacted with the button, we actually want to hide it right here. I was doing it in the wrong spot, so let's pop that in there. And then we'll do hidden. And then, let's see, what we can also do, just as a fail-safe, let's go ahead and copy this. And then if it's false, we're just going to set that to false right there. This can interact. There we go. So now let's go ahead and test it out. So I go up to it, I hit interact, it hides. I go back up to it, and then same thing. Perfect. So the next thing we want to do is create an animation blend space for our crawling animation. So what we're going to do, I already have a crawling animation pack, so this is going under the assumption that you already have one. But basically you only need two animations. You need an animation for idling, and then you need an animation for the actual crawling. So what we're going to do, let's go ahead and right click. We're going to create a new animation blend space. And we're going to select the skeleton of our player character. Mine is right here. We're going to call this one Table Crawl BS for blend space. Go ahead and open that up. And then in our blend space, over here in the asset details, we have two axes. We have the horizontal axis, and we also have the vertical axis. And I'm going to be working with the vertical axis. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to name this crawl. I'm going to set the minimum axis value to -1. I'm going to set the maximum to 1. And then I'm going to create 10 grid divisions. And then yours might, vary depending on what you're trying to do, but I found that this worked pretty well. So what we're going to do, I have my crawl animation right here. And if you don't have an idling animation, I can show you how to quickly make one real quick. It's basically just a frozen frame of the crawl animation. So let me just do that real quick, show you how to do that. So I'm going to open up my crawl animation right here. This is him crawling. And basically, I'm just going to create a single frame animation from this animation. And to do that, what you do is you go up to Create Asset, go to Create Animation, and then you're going to hit Current Pose. And then you can name that whatever you want to, and then save it in wherever you want it to be saved at. I've already done that, so I'm just going to hit Cancel. But next, what we want to do, let's go back to that blend space here. It's crawling blend space. And then what you want to do is place your idle crawling animation a little bit above the center. Just about there should be fine. We don't want it to be at the 0 because then we might have like, you might be doing like a really tiny crawl animation. We don't want that to happen. We only want that to happen once we've gotten past here in this value. And then we're going to set our crawling animation. I'm going to drag that in to right there. So if we hit the control button and then we kind of, scroll through it, that's him crawling. And then once he gets closer to 0, he's going to stop crawling just like that. So that's all you need to do for the blend space. So now what we need to do is we need to hop into the animation blueprint of our character and then do a little bit of work in there. So let's do that right now. I'm going to go to my character. I'm going to click on the mesh, and then I'm going to open up the folder right here, which is going to take me to it. Let's go ahead and open that up. So one thing, and hopefully you already have it set up, inside of your animation blueprint, you want to make sure that you have a reference to your player character. So what you do is you'll just do try get pawn owner. You'll do an is valid node. If it is valid, then we're going to cast to your player character and then promote it to a variable to store a reference. So once that's done, we need to create a new variable inside of here, and I'm going to call it is crawling. And then I'm going to pop that up here at the end of our logic. And then let me make sure I actually set up an is crawling inside of our character. I haven't. So what we need to do, we need to make a crawling variable inside of our player character blueprints. So let's do that now. I'm going to call this one crawling. And so after you've hit the interaction button, we want to set crawling to be true. And we also want to copy that, and then whenever you've exited the table, we want to set that back to false. Okay, cool. So we got that. Let's compile it, save it, and go back to our animation blueprint. And so out of our stored reference, we're just going to pull out, and we're going to do a search for crawling. So we're going to get crawling, and then we're going to also pop that into our new variable that is crawling. Okay, so now let's hop into our anim graph and then find your locomotion state machine. And then out of here, wherever your walking, slash running state is, we're going to drag out of that, and we're going to create a new state and call it crawling. And then let's also create a return node so we can go back to that state. And then the going into node, let's double click that and then drag out that new is crawling variable that we created. Pop that in there. And then the going out one, we're going to drag it in as well. But this time we're going to do a search for a not boolean, so NOT. And if you type B in afterwards, it'll pop it up. And then we'll just plug it right in. Okay, we'll compile that. And let's go to our crawling, our new state, and then let's pop in that new blend space animation that we created. See, I already created. Oh, what am I doing? Okay, so here we go. We got our blend space crawling animation. Let's go ahead and pop that in there. So one thing you also want to do, make sure to do, is inside of your player character blueprint, you want to create a variable for your movement input. So this is my movement input, and so basically what I've done is I've stored a variable right there called move forward. And so inside of our animation blueprints, you just want to make sure to have that linked up to a move forward variable inside of here. So you just drag it out and then pop it in there, and that will control the animation speed for a crawling animation. So let's go back to our crawling blend space right here, and so I'm going to pop in the move forward variable right there to control it. Go ahead and hit compile save. So now let's give it a test and see if he will actually transition into that state. And then there we go. Okay, so as you can see, he did transition into it, but his movement speed is way faster than it should be, and the camera I don't think is quite down far enough. So let's go ahead and fix that now. So let's return to our player character blueprints, and what we want to do is we're going to grab our character movement component, and then in here we're going to pull out, and we're going to do set speed. So it's a set max walk speed right there. That's the one that we want to change. And so basically, if you click on this character movement component and then you type in speed, you can see that our default walk speed is at 600 right there. And so what we want to do is we just want to smoothly transition that to be a lower value. So once you've hit the interaction button, what we can do is we can create a timeline, and then we can also create a lerp to kind of transition into that that new speed. So let's go ahead and right click and create a new timeline. It should be at the very bottom. We'll call this crawling. We'll call it crawl. There we go. And then let's go ahead and open that up by double clicking. We're going to set the length of it to be about half a second right there. And then we're going to add a new float track to it. So in here we just basically want two keyframes. We want one at the beginning, one at the end. So we're going to right click, add a new keyframe. We want to make sure the time is at 0. And then here at the end we're going to also right click. I'm going to set the time to be 0.5, and then we're going to set the value to be 1, just like that. Okay, cool. So we got that. Now what we need to do, we're going to right click, and we're going to do a search for lerp, L-E-R-P. And then we're going to take out of this timeline this new track, and we're going to pop it into the alpha channel on the lerp. So basically, let's see what we can do. So the default walk speed is set to 600 as we saw earlier, right there. So basically what a lerp does is it takes one value and moves it to another value over a specified time, which is the time inside of here. So we want to move from 600 down to something like, say 200. So it'll be kind of slow to a crawl, and then we're going to pop that into our max walk speed. And then let's go ahead and do play from start. And then whenever we're exiting the table, we can also transition back into that walk speed by selecting all this and copying it. And then we're going to paste it directly above. We're going to do play from start, but this time we're going to reverse those values. So this one's going to be 200 on top, and then 600 on the bottom. And then let me zoom out here. I want to create a little more space here to work with. Actually separate it even more. There we go. Okay, so let's do a quick test here and see if it behaves. So we go up here, we hit interact, and now we're slowly moving. And then once I exit the table, I return back to my normal speed, just like that. So the next thing I want to do is make it so the camera kind of lowers down to the ground whenever the character is underneath the table. And we can do that by changing the value of our spring arm component right here. So the spring arm component, as you can see, on the z-axis it is set to 0. And so if we want it to lower, we can kind of lower it down to something like, oh, I don't know, we'll do like 45. That seems low enough. But let's go ahead and return that back to 0 for now. We'll go back into our event graph and then drag our spring arm component into the blueprint. And I'm going to kind of place it somewhere down here. Okay, so out of the spring arm component, I'm going to drag out and do a search for set relative location. And then let's go ahead and split the structure pin on this. So you'll just right click on the input, split structure pin. That way we have access to X, Y, and Z. And then let's go ahead and copy this timeline in the lerp right here. I'm going to paste it below. Plug it in out of the update. So as you saw, for the spring arm component, it is set to 0 for the location right there. So let's go ahead and set this top one to be 0. And then we'll do -45 for the bottom. And then we'll just pop that into our Z location. Cool. So one thing, the reason I dragged all this down below this one is if I were to pop it in right here, you might encounter an issue where it plays this first and then it plays this. But we can remedy that and have them both play at the same time by creating a custom event. So we'll right click, do custom event. We'll call this one cam lower. We'll go ahead and pop that in the play from start. And then right before this transition, we can call that new event. So we'll do cam lower. Just like that. And then let's also copy this again. And so whenever it exits it, we also want to return it back to its initial position. So we'll go ahead and swap these. This will be -45 on top. This will be 0 down here. We'll do play from start. And then we'll compile it and give it a shot. So there we go. Now the camera is panning down, which is really nice. But for whatever reason, it isn't returning. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so we got to figure that out real quick. Okay. Okay, yeah, so I'm an idiot and I plugged this into the wrong thing. I basically just forgot to create a custom event for it. So we're just going to do that right now. We're going to disconnect this one up here. And then custom event. And we'll call this one cam return. Go ahead and pop that in there. And then we'll also, out of the end overlap, we're going to call that new event. And let's try it out. There we go. So now the camera transitions, and then it transitions back just like that. So one thing though that you may notice is whenever we're exiting right here, we're having a weird camera like hiccup. And we can fix that real quick. Give me one moment to figure out the issue and I will be right back. Okay, so I figured out the issue, and basically what's happening is that whenever it's exiting the overlap, it is playing this every single time. So even if you didn't hit the interaction button and then you exited the overlap, then it'll still play it. So we need to fix that by creating a new variable, and then let's call this cam return. We'll call that cam return question mark. And then we'll set that to be true after the interaction. And then on this end overlap, before you call this cam return event, let's create a new branch. Pop that in there, coming out of the true, and then we're going to pop in that cam return. Cool. So now, basically, we want to set that cam return to be false, but only after the animation has finished playing. So we're going to grab this cam return and then drag out of the finished, and then that should fix our issue. Let's try it out. So I go in, I exit, I go under, I exit, I go in, and then it doesn't do anything. So perfect, we fixed it. Alright guys, I think that pretty much does it. We could do one more thing. It does seem a little close to, like the camera seems a little close to him still, so we can fix that by doing a little zoom out real quick. So let's do that. Okay, so what we can do, if we go to our viewport and we click on the spring arm component, under this target arm length, that is basically the length that the camera is away from the character. And as you can see right here, the default is set to 300. So what we can do, let's go back into our event graph. Let's go ahead and drag that spring arm component into here. And then we're going to set target arm length. And we're going to do the exact same thing that we did with this. So we can even just copy one of these. I'm going to put it right here. There we go. And then pop that into this. And if you remember, the default value is set to 300, so we'll do 300. And then let's go ahead and set it to something like, oh, I don't know, 425, 420, that works for me. And then let's also create a new custom event so that it plays alongside this. Let me move this out of the way real quick. And I'm just going to pop it right underneath the other ones. Let's kind of line these up a bit. Okay, so I'm going to create a custom event. I'm going to call this zoom out. We'll do play from start. And then back up here, this is our interaction button right there. Right after the cam lower, we're going to call the zoom out. And then we're going to copy all this. And we're going to paste that right up here above everything else. Right click, custom event. We'll do zoom in. Play from start. And then of course we're going to swap around these variables for 20. Back to 300. And then same thing here for this cam return. We'll call zoom in. And I think that should do it. Let's give it a shot. So go up to it, the camera zooms out and it pans down. Once we exit, it returns, and boom, there we go. There we have it. We have a nice kind of stealthy way to hide underneath an obstacle. Well, cool guys, I hope you guys enjoyed that tutorial, and if you liked it, feel free to hit the like button. It helps a lot. This is only my second video on this channel, and of course you can subscribe, and that would also help out. Anyways, I hope you guys have a great day, and I will catch you in the next one.